Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. Nice to have you along with us after a weekend of great sporting activity and some controversy as well. I promised you at the end of our last podcast, when we previewed the weekend's activities, that I'd tell you all about the Sanlam Cape Town Marathon. Well, unfortunately, I can't tell you much about that marathon in terms of the results, but I can tell you that controversy surrounds the Cape Town Marathon as it was cancelled. Now, the reason for that was the inclement weather, and no, not rain, but very, very strong and high winds. Now, Cape Town's long-awaited dream of being considered a World Abbott Major Marathon is in peril after the 32nd edition of the Sanlam Cape Town Marathon was cancelled just an hour before the starting gun on Sunday morning. A record 24,000 runners were expected to run the scenic 42.2-kilometer route, but overnight high winds and damage to specific areas prompted the decision to cancel it at short notice. After emergency meetings between the race organising team, the City of Cape Town's disaster risk management and safety and security portfolios, medical services and the South African Police Service, the race was deemed unsafe and called off at 5 o'clock, with the schedule started just after 6 in the morning. The Cape Town Marathon entered its fourth and final year as a candidate for the Abbott World Marathon Majors, generating immense anticipation as it aimed for a second consecutive successful evaluation. Cape Town looked to join the 7 world's largest renowned marathons alongside Boston, London, New York, Chicago and Berlin. However, organisers were left devastated after their abrupt cancellation received massive backlash from thousands of athletes. Luckily, title sponsor Sanlam announced that 2025 marathon entrants will be eligible for a sponsored entry for the 2026 or 2027 events. Cape Town Marathon will move to a new season and date, with the 2026 race scheduled for the 24th of May, which in Cape Town is late in autumn. The organisers now have 7 months to ensure the 2026 race goes smoothly and remains unaffected by inclement weather, as their bid for the Abbott Majors will continue. Now, let me just put this into perspective. Yes, there were 20-something thousand runners who were very upset and very annoyed about the fact that the race was cancelled. And I'm sure they have every reason to be upset. Of that, I have no doubt. But to be annoyed with the organisers for making a very, very good decision in terms of the safety of the runners and the public, they have absolutely no right to be annoyed with. Now, let me just put it into perspective for you. The road, yes, the road might be fine to run on. However, the winds were so strong that the structures around the race, the portable toilets, the barriers that fenced the race in on the track had been, some of them, destroyed. So there was definitely no time for any of those structures to once again be looked at and given safety clearance. The marquees had been blown over. There was stuff all over the road. The watering points were destroyed. So as much as the runners can be offended, can you imagine the controversy that we'd be talking about this morning if somebody had climbed onto a stand and that stand had collapsed and, goodness gracious, 100 or 200 people had been injured, and even worse, somebody had died? The controversy around the race would have been absolutely even more destructive. So, yes, the runners upset. Yes, it's never happened before. Yes, they were in it to be in the Abbott's World Marathon Championships. Now, I think that in itself tells you that the organisers clearly understood that the decision that they made was in the interest of the runners and not in the interest of the organisers to become part of what will be the Abbott World Marathon Majors. And hopefully the people that are making the decision will go, you know what, these are responsible people who made a decision based on the safety and security of the runners and spectators. It's not just about the runners. There most probably would have been hundreds of thousands of spectators along the route who would have been wanting to watch the race on Sunday morning. It is not something that can be planned for. It's absolutely not something that anybody can go, we're going to make sure that everything goes smoothly. You know what? The wind blows in Cape Town, and when it blows, it can be extremely disappointed. Now, after news of the cancellation broke, disappointed runners initially turned away, but hundreds still gathered at the Greenpoint starting line either to connect with their running groups or seek updates or change from the organisers. However, 1 o'clock an hour into the race's scheduled time, workers had already begun clearing the barricaded roads, de-rigging, removing signage and packing away materials. Thousands of athletes, whether coming from nearby or far away, not only missed out on their cherished table-mounted imprinted medals, but also incurred financial losses along with sponsors and stakeholders. But after organisers confirmed that the 2025 entrants will get a sponsored entry into either next year or the year after's race, several athletes were satisfied with the organisers' attempts to console the runners. There you go. So there is speculation that due to the Abbott criteria and prestige in mind, the Cape Town Marathon would have been in an embarrassing situation had the 42.2-kilometre race gone ahead in poor windy conditions. Cape Town Marathon organisers had to meet various requirements, protocols and stipulations to achieve successful elevation and its major status. So there you go. Criteria for Cape Town Marathon organisers required 15,000 runners to complete the 42.2-kilometre race, a car-free route on race day, a wheelchair event, and the race must also feature a minimum number of platinum and gold label athletes to qualify. Before the race, they confidently stated they were well prepared for a successful event. However, the wind blew in and disrupted any runner's dreams of crossing the finish line. The organisers expressed continued optimism about Cape Town's long-held ambition to become a world marathon major, insisting that their grit and unwavering determination remains. Right, let's move along now from that Cape Town Marathon and, if I may use the pun, speedily on to rugby, and another good weekend this weekend for a couple of South African teams, and not such a good weekend for some others. Let's start off with the results for you. On Friday evening, it was Connacht 27, the Bulls 28. Very good result in the end there for the Bulls away from home. Edinburgh 48, Benetton 0, and the Dragons 17, Cardiff 24. On Saturday, Ospreys 17, Glasgow Warriors 42, Zebra 13, Stormers 31, Leinster 14, Munster 31, Sharks 26, Ulster 34, Springbok Leyden Sharks team beaten again, and the Lions beating the Llanelli Scarlets 29-18. So in all, 3 wins and a loss for South African teams at the end of this weekend, and they can be very happy. If the Sharks result go their way, it was a bit of a bounce back by the Bulls. Very good performance by them. Johan Ackermann pronounced himself extremely proud of the effort that his team put in, and he knows the team need to build on moments like the ones they are to be in the fight when the playoffs come around. Top of that table, the Stormers played 4, won 4. My goodness, how good have the Stormers been? Normally they start off absolutely terribly in the United Rugby Championship, but by goodness have they started this season off absolutely brilliantly. Huge points difference and 3 bonus points to go along with their other points to give them 19. 4 games played, 4 wins, perfect record, 19 points. As does Munster, also 4 games played. They have 19 points. Glasgow Warriors, 4 games played. They have 16 points. And Cardiff also on 16 points. So it's good for them. Now the Stormers, regardless of what happens in their final week of their tour, will end their first phase in a much better position than they've been at corresponding stages of any of the previous editions of the competition. Even in the year they won the competition, or the season that they were beaten in a Cape Town final by Munster, they had lower in the log and were under pressure. Now with 4 wins in 4 starts and just 1 missed point when they failed to cross the line for a 4th try against the Ospreys, plus an overwhelmingly superior points differential to the teams around them, the Stormers topped the log with 1 game remaining before the international break. But while 4 wins in 5 games, the next phase will be a comfortable position for the Stormers. Their director of rugby, John Dobson, knows only too well just how tough the URC is. The game they play after the international break is away against Munster, who after their win over Leinster at the weekend are arguably the form team in the early rounds of competition. And then after the interlude for the EPCR games in early and mid-December, they head into a series of tough derbies. So another win while the momentum is with them is important. imperative. Great result for the Stormers, great performance once again by them. Great disappointment, I might add, for the Sharks. I don't know what is going on there. And Leinster, I might add, it was an unexpected that two of last year's top four finishers will be the big losers in the fourth round of the URC. But in retrospect, that Leinster and the Hollywood Bet Sharks both lost home games is not as strange as some make it out. Perhaps the warning signs the previous week when the Bulls, laden for that game with returning Springboks, were outplayed 28-7 by Ulster in Belfast. Andre Pollard was returning to the Bulls after a long absence and had just a few training sessions with the team. Will Callow, Caden Moody, Marco van Staten, Jan-Hendrik Wessels and others were all getting their first taste of being Bulls since losing last season's final against Leinster. Now, the team that conquered the Bulls in round 3 travelled to Durban in a confident mood, and as a together team, they had mostly been together since the start of pre-season. By contrast, half the team had had just arrived at Kings Park from a 3-man, while the other half reported for their first Sharks training the next day. Now, if John Plumtree erred, it was probably in disrespecting what rugby is, a team sport. It did work for the Sharks last year when they faced the Warriors in the Boks first game back. But unless you're the Barbarians and the result doesn't matter, bringing a team together 3 days before the game is of high risk. So I'm sure the Sharks will get better going forward. So let's have a look at the fixtures coming up for the week. Friday evening, it's the Glasgow Warriors hosting the Bulls in Scotland. Saturday morning, play Australia, and then the Lions at home to Ulster in the early kickoff in South Africa on Saturday afternoon. 4 o'clock kickoff sees the Sharks against the Llanelli Scarlets. 6:30, the Dragons against Ospreys. Then Benetton play the Stormers at 6:30. As do Leinster play Zebras. Munster and Connacht clash at 9:15, and Cardiff play Edinburgh at the same time. So lots to play for, lots of action before the international break for these players, back to their respective international teams, and onward they will go. Right, let's look at some cricket news and some fantastic news for the women Proteas South African team. They are in it. Yep, they have got themselves into the semi-finals of the Cricket World Cup, as do Australia. Both of them have now qualified for the competition, but 4-time champions England have booked their ticket to the semi-finals after a nail-biting 4-run win over the hosts India in Indore. England had posted a competitive 288 for 8 thanks to Heather Knight's century and held their nerve in the field to defend it despite their bowling being a bit off touch. India looked to be cruising towards victory, needing 62 runs off the last 10 overs with 7 wickets in hand. But the wicket of Smriti Mandhana turned the tide as scoreboard pressure crept in and dot balls piled up. Unfortunately, reckless batting cost India dear. So, after reaching a half-century, Dipti Sharma perished trying to take on Sophie Eccleston, a long slog sweep that found deep mid-wicket. From there on, the writing was on the wall, and goodbye. Now, rain continued as Pakistan's New Zealand World Cup clash was washed out over the weekend, and then, of course, no sunshine, but no problem, as South Africa won their game on Friday evening. Threatened to wash out the game, Laura Wolfart brought the sunshine with a captain's knock after a 5-hour rain delay. The ICC Women's World Cup clash turned into a 20-over shootout. Wolfart adapted instantly with a mindset of a T20 opener. She crafted 60 or 49 balls and guided South Africa to a wonderful 10-wicket victory in that one. So as far as the ICC Women's World Cup is concerned, we look at the table. Australia have played 5. They are on top of the table with 9 points. They are right up there, so well done to them, with England, South Africa, India, and then, of course, New Zealand, unfortunately, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, who are struggling at the bottom of the table as far as the tournament is concerned. So after a very poor start by the South Africans and getting a serious hammering in the first match, of course, against the English, they have come back quite brilliantly, have the South Africans, and they are in pole position, if you like, as far as the competition is concerned. So all the teams have now played 5 matches. Australia top the table with 9 points. England have also got 9 points. South Africa have got 8. Those 3 are guaranteed qualification. Now, India, New Zealand, and even to a lesser extent, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka could perhaps still make it through to the competition. 2 matches still to be played in the groups. And as long as the weather holds off, today's match will see Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. That's currently on. Tomorrow, a dead rubber for South Africa, but they come up against Pakistan. Australia play England in another dead rubber to decide who will finish top of the group. And then India play New Zealand. That is a massive, massive game on Wednesday, followed by Pakistan against Sri Lanka, and then Australia, South Africa, and then on the weekend, England versus New Zealand and India versus Bangladesh. That could still be a game that India need to win to make it into the semi-finals of the competition. So lots of action still to come this week in the ICC Women's Tournament. So that's the cricket as far as that is concerned. There are other fixtures, of course. There's currently a couple of test matches underway. Well, South Africa are playing against Pakistan. Day one of that test match was today. Zimbabwe are playing Afghanistan in a one-off test as well. And then the Cricket South Africa competition will get back underway with the Tuskers against Boerland, Western Province against the Dolphins, the Titans against the Warriors, and the DP World Lions against the Northwest Dragons. That all gets underway. South African action in 4-day cricket. Then on tomorrow, it is Bangladesh against the West Indies in the second one-day international. South Africa, Pakistan in the ICC Women's Trophy. Wednesday, it's Australia against England. Thursday, it's Australia against India in the second one-day international. New Zealand against England in the third T20 international. Bangladesh against the West Indies in the third one-day international. Match 24 in the Cricket World Cup. India against New Zealand, a must-win situation for both of those teams. Friday, Pakistan against Sri Lanka. Northern Cape Heat against the Knights in the T20 Challenge in South Africa. Saturday, the third one-day international, Australia against India. Australian women against South African women in the ICC World Cup. Biggest game of the competition, precursor to perhaps a final. And then the Impalas against the 6-gun Garden Route Badgers. Love that name, the T20 Challenge in South Africa. One on Sunday sees the first one-day international between New Zealand and England. The ICC Women's World Cup starts wrapping itself up. Match 27 and 28, England against New Zealand and India against Bangladesh, while the Eastern Cape Linyati take on the Mpumalanga Rhinos. Bangladesh play the West Indies in the first T20 next week. So lots of cricket action this week, lots to talk about as we move forward into the summer in Southern Hemisphere. Right, let's look at some tennis, and it was a good weekend for Norway's Casper Ruud. He blasted past the Frenchman Hugo Humbert 6-3, 6-2 to win the Stockholm ATP 250 tournament. It's his 14th career title. The second seed raced through the first set in just a half an hour, dropping just 2 points off his serve. The second was a similar affair as Ruud broke fourth seed Humbert early on and easily served out the match, dropping only a point on his serve in the entire second set. He wrapped up victory in just 68 minutes. Brilliant stuff there. And Daniil Medvedev won his first title in 2 years, defeating Frenchman Corentin Moutet 7-5, 4-6, 6-3 in the final of the ATP tournament in Almaty. Since winning in Rome in May 2023, Medvedev, ranked 14th in the world, has lost 6 finals, including the US Open and the Australian Open. This year he lost in the second round in Melbourne before going out in the first round at Roland Garros, Wimbledon and Flushing Meadows. After the US Open, Medvedev started working with new coach Thomas Johansson and Rohan Kutska and responded by reaching semi-finals in Beijing and Shanghai. It's the 21st victory of his career and also boosts his hopes of reaching the year-ending ATP finals, moving him up 3 spots to 12th, just 870 points behind Lorenzo Musetti, who is in the 8th and final place. And world number 9 Jack Draper said the ATP Tour must review its packed calendar if young players are to have a longer career after Holger Rune sustained a serious injury and joined a growing list of players breaking down as the season nears its end. The relentless men's and women's tennis circuit, which runs for 11 months, has come under a harsh spotlight. So, another win for Auger Aliassime. Thanks to his new bride, he lifted the Brussels title. The Canadian thanked his new bride after he beat Yuri Lechka 7-6, 6-7, 6-2 to lift the Brussels Open title yesterday. The 25-year-old from Quebec won his 8th ATP title, his 3rd this season after Montpellier and Adelaide. Neither of the powerful servers conceded a break during the first 2 sets, but the Czech also lost in the final last year, saved 2 match points in the deciding game of the second set before being broken twice in the final set. Auger Aliassime married show jumper Nina Gaibi in Morocco 2 weeks after making the quarterfinals of the US Open. Next up for the winner of the ATP 500 in Basel to try for the world's top 8 Masters at the end of the year. He is 9th, 340 points behind Lorenzo Musetti, who is in 8th. So a great performance there. And Monaco Tennis Federation President Melanie Antoinette de Marseille hailed Valentin Vacherot's Shanghai Masters victory as a historic milestone for the Principality, marking the federation's first ever Masters 1000 title. Vacherot completed a fairy tale run at the tournament, rallying from a set down to defeat his cousin last week. So that story is still making the headlines in the tennis world. So what is up for the tennis players as far as tennis is concerned, or should I say the ladies, who of course were in action? And Rybakina, that's Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina, came from a set down to capture the 10th title of her career, beating Ekaterina Alexandrova. In the Ningbo Open final in China, Rybakina fired 39 winners, 11 aces, and won 88% of her first service points against the Russian Alexandrova to clinch her second trophy of the season. And Canada's Leylah Fernandez won her second title of the year, beating Czech teenager Teresa Valentova 6-love, 5-7, 6-3 in the Japan Open over the weekend. Fernandez, the world number 27, followed up a victory at the DC Open in Washington in July with another tournament win after seeing off qualifier Valentova in Osaka. So wonderful performance by her there. Right, on to golf, and he's done it. Tommy Fleetwood, the red-hot Brit, shot a superb final round, 7 under par 65 to win the DP World India Championship by 2 strokes, continuing a magnificent run of form. Japan's Keita Nakajima began the day in the lead with a 2-shot cushion at 17 under par, but his 3 under 69 was not enough to hold off the charge of the Englishman, who finished at 22 under par. After tapping in for par at the last, the popular Fleetwood enjoyed a magical moment when his 7-year-old son Frankie charged across the green to hug his father to huge cheers from the packed galleries. So we were at home last week and we playing golf together, and Frankie just said, "Do you know what you've never done? You've never won a tournament, and I've been able to run onto the 18th green. All day today I had in my mind, could I put myself in a position where I can actually make that happen?" It's just one of those little things that means a lot. It was really cool. That's all he wanted to do all day. It just shows you these guys are actually human. Fleetwood took control with 4 birdies from the 7th at the devilishly tight Delhi Golf Club, but it was a crucial par putt at the 11th that kept his round going. Brilliant, brilliant. Lovely, lovely to see. And obviously off the back of the Ryder Cup, it's been fantastic. South Africa's Thurston Lawrence came home in 3rd place at 18 under par. Also shot a fantastic 65 on the final day of the competition. So lots of great action there on the DP World Tour, the Indian Open. First time the tour has gone on to India. So this week there is action fast and furious. The Gary Player Country Club, the Blue Label Unlimited Challenge at Sun City gets underway this week. And then on the DP World Tour, they are off to the Wuzhong Hills in Chunan in China for the Genesis Open. And on the US PGA Tour, it is the Bank of Utah Championship at the Black Desert Golf Club. So lots of amazing golf coming up over the next couple of days, leading up towards the end of the month. Right, let's move on to football news, shall we now, and have a look at some of the weekend results. And it was a very good weekend for a couple of players, a couple of teams, and of course for a couple of fans who have been on the rather unfortunate side of the table. Manchester United, of course, I am talking about them, but before we get to Manchester United, let's just have a look at what happened in the Betway Premier League this weekend back in South Africa. There was some action there. Maruma Galant, 2-1 victors over Chippa United. Magesi beat TS Galaxy 2-1 and Amazulu beat Durban City by a 0-0. There was also football in Africa, the CAF Champions League this weekend, and not such a good weekend for Sundowns of South Africa. They got through to their victory there, and then of course Pirates as well with Chiefs. A 1-1 draw, but apparently all the players in the Chiefs side had diarrhea, and the grounds, the playing field apparently was not a very good one. So a little bit of disappointment as far as that is concerned. So just to recap for you, Sundowns flying the South African flag. They beat Nigeria's Remo Stars 5-1 in the first leg of their CAF Champions League. Sundowns win came during a disappointing weekend for the other South African teams. Pirates beaten 3-0 in Lubumbashi, while Chiefs and Stellenbosch FC played out goalless draws. Right on to the Premier League in England, and as I mentioned, it was a magnificent weekend if you are a Manchester United fan. And Ruben Amorim says he wants more big wins after his first victory at Anfield and his team's first victory at Anfield since 2016. Manchester United's long-suffering fans were celebrating well into the night and will do for at least another year after Harry Maguire's late winner inflicted a fourth consecutive defeat on Liverpool. 2-1 win ensured that United earned their first back-to-back victories in the Premier League since Amorim took charge a year ago. The Portuguese coach said that how his players respond next weekend when Brighton visit Old Trafford will tell him more about what United can aspire to this season. United have crashed out of the League Cup to fourth-tier Grimsby in August, and Amorim appeared to be on the brink of losing his job after defeat to Brentford last month. However, wins over Sunderland and their historic rivals have lifted the Red Devils up to 9th in the Premier League and within 2 points of fourth placed Liverpool. A wonderful, wonderful result for Manchester United. And a very good game as well, I must say. Normally these games sometimes don't live up to the hype. Well, this one certainly lived up to the hype. Let's have a look at the other results from yesterday. Aston Villa came from a goal down to beat Spurs 2-1 at the Spurs home ground. So that's not a good result for Spurs. Fulham 0, Arsenal 1 puts them top of the table. Sunderland 2, Wolves 0, Man City 2, Everton 0, Crystal Palace and Bournemouth. An absolute 6-goal thriller, shared 3 apiece. Burnley 2-0 victors over Leeds United. Brighton 2-1 over Newcastle and Nottingham Forest 0. Chelsea 3, good first half for Nottingham Forest. Chelsea then coming back in the second half to put 3 past Forest, and literally within half an hour of the game, Anks Postecoglou, after 7 games in charge, was fired as the Nottingham Forest manager. So lots of drama at the moment at Nottingham Forest. One game still to be played later on this evening. West Ham play Brentford, and then Friday sees Leeds play West Ham, followed by Chelsea against Sunderland, Newcastle against Fulham, Manchester United against Brighton, and Brentford against Liverpool. Then on Sunday, it's Arsenal Crystal Palace in a London derby, Aston Villa versus Manchester City, Bournemouth against Nottingham Forest, Wolves against Burnley, and Everton against Spurs. The top of the table looks like this. Arsenal, 3 points clear of Manchester City, 19 points for Arsenal. There's no unbeaten team left in the Premier League. They've only lost 1. Bournemouth also only lost 1, 15 points. They're in 3rd place, with Liverpool now in 4th place on 15 points. Chelsea 5th and Spurs 6th. But it's very, very close indeed, because there's just 2 points that separate Sunderland, Crystal Palace, Manchester United and Brighton, just a point behind United and Palace, behind Sunderland, Spurs and Chelsea on 14. Bottom of the table, oh my goodness, Wolverhampton Wanderers, nothing to show for their season so far. They have 2 points. West Ham have 4 and Nottingham Forest have 5. That's the 3 in the relegation zone. Burnley, Brentford and Leeds just above the relegation zone, with lots of footballing action still to come. Can you believe it? We're already 8 games into the new season. And that is tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. However your team did this weekend, celebrate and enjoy the glory, because next week it could be very different. Until next time, be nice to each other, and bye for now.